And Janelle and I were talking earlier and decided we've known one another for at least like 20 years.
At least, we'll go with that.
Yeah, at least. She knew me probably when I was a 5th grader on up. She was good friends with my sister, and then my family started going to her family's church. And actually, our parents knew one another before then because they were both involved in the Gideon chapter of our area. Janelle is currently, and she will talk about that a little bit more, but she's currently a radio personality in Northeast Iowa, and I'll let her take it from there. Have at it.
Okay, perfect. So I'll start. Hey, let's see. How did I start this last time? I don't have a very good speech rehearsed, so I'm just going to talk.
That's
16
fine.
years doing this job. It will be 16, I guess, this fall, which is shocking when I look so young. I understand that, but I've been at this for a little bit. I do on-air stuff. I'm sidekick on the morning show. Sometimes I run it by myself, but that's because my boss can't decide if he wants to retire or not. I don't think he's standing right outside my office, but otherwise I play sidekick, just try to be the funny one, I guess, or whatever. And then I have my own air shift from 9 to noon every day. My real job is what I always say. My real job is traffic. We have 3 radio stations. All 3 of them are FM frequencies. One, classic hits. One is a format that we just made up, frankly, and it's pretty cool, actually. It's you'll hear Adele and Ed Sheeran and the Rat Pack, and I mean, it's kind of a pretty wide variety. It's a lot of fun. But anyways, what I do, traffic means is I put the traffic logs, which are all the commercial ads, radio commercials that you hear on the air. They all originate in my desk, get that up there somewhere. It's really, really full because it's Friday and my sales reps are kind of bad procrastinators and they like to throw a lot of stuff on my plate on Friday afternoons. And so then what happens is all those ads and all those schedules from clients, I put into the computer, into our traffic system. It turns it into a traffic log, and then that is merged into our music log. And so when you turn your radio on out there, what you hear is what I've kind of compiled based on what I've been given by my sales reps. And then I took on another job I've been doing that for about a year now. I'm a full-time news director. Well, not full-time, but news director, I guess. I'm the only one we have, so I guess it is what it is, for all 3 of our stations as well. We cover southeastern Minnesota, northeastern Iowa, and west central Wisconsin. And so it's kind of a varied newscast. I guess some of you may or may not have heard me talking. I was just editing a story about some guy who got picked up for doing meth. We get quite a fair amount of lately. But as far as news goes, I'm guessing it's probably not that different than Tyler, as far as there's not a lot of, I don't know, some of those kind of things. Our news is a little bit different. So it's kind of neat, though, because one of my news stories today is actually talking or interviewing the Chamber of Commerce for the city of Lansing, where they're replacing. Lansing is right on the Mississippi, and they're talking about replacing what they call the Black Hawk Bridge, which is this big, beautiful old truss bridge, with the great, I don't know what you call those dealy bobbers overhead. And they're talking about replacing it because it's old and maintenance is expensive and trucks are bigger and vehicles are bigger and whatever. And so they're having a big meeting about that on Monday. So that's kind of news stories, a lot of the news stories I deal with here. Let's see. So I come to work. I work Monday through Friday. Normally, I'm pretty sure that's one of the questions that you have on here is hours. My hours have changed a lot in the last 16 years. When I first started working here, I was working from 8 until 6 and was supposed to take an hour lunch break in the middle of the day. I'm on salary for 40 hours a week. So the cool part about salary is that your paycheck, I get paid twice a month, is the same every time you get a paycheck. The salary is, say, if you get stuck working late at work, you're just giving your time to the company. But a little bit of that can go a long ways. I mean, it's really nice to be loyal to your job, but giving them all of your time is part of learning time management, because you have your family and other obligations and things that you need to take care of. So anyway, a few years ago, though, I changed to helping out in the mornings. And so I also went at that time to working a straight 8. So I work from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I probably wouldn't give up leaving at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for about $1 million, because it's really, really nice to be able to get out of here. I get a lot done when I get home. Once you become a morning bird, you kind of are just a morning bird. And it's not that bad, you guys. I know I have a teenager at home, and morning time can be kind of iffy that way. But once you're up and at 'em, morning is pretty awesome, actually, because some of the other riffraff leaves you alone. So I'm here in the office usually by about 6:30 or 6:45, so I can fire up my computer and have everything ready to go. Let's see. Yeah, go for it.
Are you at which office are you at? Because isn't KNEI down at Lansing, or are you in Decorah?
Wakan. Yep. I'm actually in the Decorah office. So yeah, that's a great question, Robin. We have 2 offices, one in Decorah and one in Wakan. So
they don't know where any of these places.
What's that?
They don't know where any of
right. Okay. So 2 different towns, about 20 miles apart. So my commute from home is about 16 miles to my office, but then our other office is about 20. You guys know where the Mississippi River is, right?
Yeah, but they have
the Mississippi River.
I show them pictures, but they haven't been. Not most.
Yeah. You're missing a beautiful part of the country. It's gorgeous up here, actually. But yeah, so I'm in the Decorah office. We have 4 of us that are over here full-time, and then there are 2 full-time and 1 part-time over in the other office. So the country station is over there, and I'm at because that's where I guess I'm on the airs with the, we play classic hits, we call it. So I don't know, Bob Seger, and why can't I think of a single other person? I was just on the air for 4 hours today. You think I'd remember some songs that I played? 20 years and older. Sammy Hagar, Bob Seger, Pat Benatar, the Rolling Stones, Lynyrd Skynyrd, the Psychedelic Furs. Have you ever heard of them before? They're awesome. You guys are all going, I don't know any of these people probably. Guys?
They were born in 2000.
Ooh.
Yeah. I had this conversation 2 days ago when we talked about.
Which is totally great. Enjoy being young, but oh, man. Maybe you don't know any of that music. I don't know. What do you guys listen to? Do you listen to the radio, or are you all iPodders, streamers?
Oh, we have a large section of country music listeners.
Oh, yeah.
Your ag contingent tends to be that way.
All right.
We have a
FFA represent. Hey, I was an FFA'er, so that's great.
And then we have more of the rap and punk, a few of those.
Okay. So
now and then there's some pop listeners.
Okay.
They have a student in the class ahead of them whose family owns or runs a radio station. The Christian family. Yeah. But I haven't talked to them yet, so I don't know.
So, but you
know anything about it.
So for the most part, you are listening to radio, though, when you listen to your music, or are you listening on your devices, whatever your device might be? Oh, okay. You don't want to listen to commercial content anymore, is my guess.
Plus, country music's turned into pop, so.
Oh, and they don't like how country music has changed. Can you hear them? Or do you just
I can catch a little bit, but your translation helps a lot. And I totally agree with you. Our country station actually plays old country and new country. So rock on. You should download the app. We have an old country show that happens on Saturday mornings with this little guy that we call Little Dale. And he is exactly as his name implies, and he's awesome. And he's on every Saturday morning from 6 to 10. Yep. So you guys could even stream good country music out there.
When I visit home, it's KNEI, the station he's talking about, that I tune in.
Yeah, KNEI is a 50,000 watt station. So here's a little radio nerd stuff for you. Wattage wise, and I'm not going to get a ton into this because a lot of this goes into the engineering part of things, where there's a reason engineers get paid buku bucks because they do a lot of really smart stuff. But KNEI is our country station, is a 50,000 watt station. So it's the one of our three that covers all three states, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. KVIK, the station I work for, is a 4,600 watt station. And we can get as far south as, say, like Strawberry Point, which is probably 75, maybe 80 miles south of here. When you go north, there's another 104, where our frequency is 104.7. And so when you go north, there's another station up in that neck of the woods that is 104.7. So you lose us a lot faster, like actually over by Caledonia, nearby where your teacher grew up. And that's, I don't know, maybe 30 miles from here, maybe 30, 40. I don't know for sure. But so wattage, go ahead.
30 as the crow flies. It'll take you longer if you drive it. Because
right, yep. And so that's kind of the wattage thing. But see, then the cool part about the 21st century is that all three of our stations you can stream online through our website, or if you have smart devices or like the Roku TV or the smart TVs or iPads, any of that kind of stuff, we have an app that you can download that's free, and then you can listen to those too, which is kind of a cool thing for us because we cover a lot of local sports. So, for example, we have play-by-play of tonight's local football game. And there's a lot of people that listen from far away to that stuff, whether they're fans or they have nieces and nephews that play and or that type of thing. So we get kind of a lot of listeners online that way. Let's see, what else do you guys want to hear? So, anxiety. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, they want to know how, well, actually, they want you to play a song, but I'm not going to ask you to do that. They want you to know about song selection and how that works.
Okay. And that's actually not my department as much as it is our program director, Pete's department, but he has a program. So we have however many songs in our database. Do you want to come in, Pete, and say hi to the kids from Tyler?
Where are they from?
Tyler, Minnesota. So Pete's peeking in my office.
I'm from Minnesota too.
Minnesota. Because you were.
Hey there, guys.
See, you probably can't hear them. There you go. See if we can hear them without my headphones. I was thinking having trouble. So they just asked about music. How does the music selection happen? So Pete could probably explain that a lot better than I can.
It's a very scientific computer program. Everybody thinks that we just get to pick out whatever songs we want and play those. We sure wish.
Sometimes we do.
We can edit the playlists here and there a little bit, but big computer program to make sure that many songs don't play back to back or too often or what have you.
So our country station that.
Oh, they want you to inform our local station that they need to use that program.
My guess is your country station is probably like a top 40.
Yeah.
And so then most of those formats, they're going to play it. So say Kenny Chesney has a brand new song, you're probably going to hear that in your, like, say, morning drive time, afternoon drive time, because Kenny Chesney wants that song to have more play time. Mm-hmm. Whereas with us, our songs were hits at least 20 years ago, if not more. And so we don't care if Bob Seger wants us to play, old time rock and roll. We're not going to play it every hour. We're going to play it, I don't know, once a week or once every 3-4 days.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
does that kind of make sense? It all depends a little bit on the format.
Yeah.
Make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they like that. What else you got? What else you want to know about?
What about like speech anxiety? Like, she has to talk about
Oh, okay. So I have a kid in here who's from my high school speech class, and we've been talking about speech anxiety. So you're a little bit different. You're on air. People don't typically see you, but does it still exist? How do you work with that? What do you do about it?
I don't know. Pete, I don't know.
I'm deathly afraid to get up and talk to people in person, to like MC a banquet or anything like that. I get asked to do it all the time, and I do it all the time, but I absolutely hate it. You just got to power through. Radio is a different thing, like you kind of alluded to. You just got the microphone and a clock in front of you. So it's not so much like you see everybody out in front of you, but I'm pretty introverted, and I'm a radio guy, so when people meet me in person, they're really surprised that I'm kind of shy, and because it's not what I sound like on the radio. So.
And I guess it kind of depends on the person. Like I do quite a little bit of that kind of stuff. Like this weekend, in fact, I am emceeing 2 parades, and I fill in for my boss at the local racetrack doing public address announcing at the local dirt track. You know, some of that kind of stuff. It depends a lot on the situation. And for me, I mentioned this to the class earlier. I'm an old speech nerd, right? I was in speech in school and 4-H and FFA. Started doing it when I was 9. My mom was a school teacher. She doing this kind of stuff. And while there's a certain amount of nerves that go with it, I don't necessarily buy into that whole picture your audience naked thing. I think to me that's just a distraction. Some of the toughest things I've ever had to do, and I'll just be honest with you, the toughest time I've ever had to speak up front probably is I was asked to do a eulogy for a dear friend of mine a couple years ago. And the only way I got through it was preparation. So extemporaneously speaking, like I am right now, I ramble a lot because I'm Midwestern and I have to talk with my hands. But if you're doing something like that, it can be anxiety. I mean, certainly I was anxious about it, but I had very carefully written my speech and I had very carefully what I wanted to say, and I had it in front of me and had practiced at it. So some of it is you just can't ever get around right?
Yeah, you got to practice.
That's any kind of,
and
right.
That's for all of us. I tell them that they're used to seeing their teachers up in front of a class, and we're used to being in front of a class, but you put us in front of some other group of people and we're usually nervous wrecks.
Well, right. And just because you're nervous doesn't mean you have to be up there. I mean, I remember when I first did one of my first speeches, I was just a little kid, and I remember I stood up in the front and I had my little papers in front of me and I swung my leg, like I kicked my leg, like my knee was unhinged through the whole speech. I did a great job delivering the thing, but had no clue the body language thing had even happened until afterwards. And of course, my mom's going, well, that's something we're going to have to try to picture, picture your feet in bricks and some of that kind of thing. But there too, that goes back to the preparation. And I mean, teachers put together lesson plans and those kind of things. Very rarely do you have someone that gets up in front and of any group of anybody and hasn't done some kind of preparation.
Come over, Andrea.
I think.
Okay. Andrea has a question for you.
Okay.
Do you communicate with regularly?
Oh, she wants to know what kinds of people you communicate with regularly.
A lot of strange people, I'll be honest with you. I actually did a live broadcast last night at a local phone company, and some crazy guy chewed me out because he was sure I was going to sell his information to some, and I'm like, okay, buddy, whatever. So, there's that faction of things. People call the station all the time with kind of insane stuff. Otherwise, as far as that goes, though, on my day-to-day, Pete, the guy you just saw here just a second ago, and I work together every single day. My boss, Les, and I are on the air every day together. And then with the news part of what I do, I talk to a lot of people in the community. Law enforcement, especially. I deal with them for a lot of reasons, but in part because I like to be on their good side. Because if they, if I want breaking news, or if I want news or information about something that's happened, if you're in good with people like that, which is kind of makes it sound like bribery, but it's all I'm really doing is just being nice. I mean, I'm not bringing them donuts or something stupid like that. And that can get you a long ways with people if you treat them like you want to be treated, which I know is kind of old hat, probably. You've all heard that most of your lives. But really, you bridge, build, make connections. And my cell phone is full of people that I could call and say, hey, I need information about this person or that thing. Can you help me find them? And they do what I needed for them. They give me the information I needed.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Andrea, does that answer your question? She's nodding her head. Yeah. And
Okay,
that
good.
leads us into a couple of topics we talked about with the seniors.
Okay.
Networking and how important that is. And also that we communicate in several different ways.
Right.
And you're talking a lot about the verbal communication, but there's also written and stuff. But Garrett has his hand up. Awesome. What do you want to know?
How would you fix it if you made like a blunder on air about
Oh,
something?
good question. He wants to know what you do when you make a blunder on air. When you
Well, it depends a lot on what the blunder is. If you just stumble over words, you just go, like you're hearing me do right now. I do a lot of that on the air. It's backpedal or, kind of, you can turn it into just part of your regular syntax, right? I mean, okay, well, I made a mistake and whoops. Sometimes you can laugh it off. Sometimes you can turn it into, well, you're making a joke about something or whatever. If you make mistakes, like, for example, reporting a news story incorrectly, or maybe we've recorded an ad wrong and the client calls and they're mad about it, then you have to do some retraction that way too. And there you get into the communication thing that way too, where you have to be able to know how to communicate with clients. If I have a client on the phone right now who's hot under the collar because we recorded an ad and say their phone number is wrong or their website was wrong or we did something wrong and they are PO'd, and you have to figure out a way to diffuse the situation. And for some people, for some situations, it's really easy, and for some, it's not. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of both in the years I've done this. But you have to be able to communicate with them, and the whole customer is always right thing. Unfortunately, rule of thumb is most of the time true, at least while you have them on the phone. You can cuss them out after you've hung up. You know what I mean?
Jackson.
Don't do it to their face, right?
Oh, Jackson wants to know what happens if it's not necessarily you making the error, but if a system crashes and suddenly you can't broadcast. Dead air.
There's a lot of really interesting stuff with that too. We now have an incredibly cool generator. So the likelihood of us not being able to broadcast, period, is very, very slim. There are times like where the electricity and those kind of things go off. So our system in the studio, which is right behind me, we have a backup CD players. So if the main computer, which has all the commercial logs and all the music and everything in the hard drive there, if that computer goes down for some reason, sorry, can you guys hear that mooing? Somebody just texted me, and it's my phone moves when it's texting. You just grab CDs and you start. The cardinal rule in radio is you don't want dead air. So no dead air. Do whatever you have to. If you have to open the mic and just start talking, that's what you do. So that's kind of how you deal with some of that stuff. Every situation's a little bit different. But the generator thing is pretty cool, actually, because this is runs off of. Oh, Les has got his headphones on. I was going to ask him. I think it's natural gas. So, and it's actually then set to cycle every 24 hours. So it actually charges its little battery thing. So then the battery thing will work to fire up the motor. And the last time we lost electricity from a storm or something like that, it didn't even blink in here. It changed over so smoothly, which is really a neat thing when you think about times that you're going to need this, like when we've had flooding and these kind of other major issues where you're trying to report roads closed and evacuations and those kind of things. It's important that we be on the air for the community.
Oh, I have 2 more kids with questions. See.
Oh my gosh, you guys are great.
We love this because the seniors were scared to ask questions. Lauren.
How'd you get interested?
Lauren wants to know how you got interested in radio.
Well, I don't know. I guess I was born talking, right? So, I mean, I started talking at a very young age. My brother, on the other hand, who is 2 years younger than me, didn't speak really a full sentence until he was about 3. And that was not because he was stupid. It's because he couldn't get a word in edgewise. And so it was one of those, I'd always been encouraged to try to figure out a way to do something with the talking for a living, I guess. And so I had, there was a local radio station right in my hometown. And so I had seen the ins and outs of it. I was very interested in it. Didn't really have much to do with that. college, I went as a communications major, and I wanted to do an agriculture minor. And I told my advisor my freshman year, I said, I want to get in radio. That's where I want to use my communications, and somehow radio and agriculture and combine it all, whatever. I mean, I know now there are ways that I could have done that, but when I was in college, it would have been fall of 1996. Radio was very much going by way of these huge satellite stations, and so smaller radio stations. Anyway, so the long and short of it is, my advisor says there's no future in radio. Well, I'm paying a lot of money to be here and learning how to be in radio, and so I changed my major 4 times in 4 years and ended up dropping out of college and doing a lot of stuff that brought me talking, and then did some other things, hop and skip between quitting school and then moving back home. Including working as a nurse's aide at the nursing home in Spring Grove, where I had one of my nurses knew my coworker that's now my coworker, and it was hey, I know this girl who likes to talk, and my coworker now says, I really, really need somebody down here, because she was in dire need of not only office help, but they needed on-air stuff, which I had never done before. But this other thing is, I also know myself well enough to know that I'm very, very good at on-the-job training. It's my favorite way to do things, because you learn very, very quickly from making mistakes. I'm not a very good sitter behind a book and try to follow instructions. It's probably easier to just jump into things and figure it out. So does that kind of answer your question? It's kind of a long, convoluted answer.
She's nodding. Jared?
I was going to ask what like most interesting news story she's covered.
Oh, Jared wants to know what the most interesting news story you've probably ever covered has been.
Wow, I don't know. We've had some kind of crazy stuff happening here the last month and a half or so. We had a terrible boating accident. We're only about 35 or 40 miles from the Mississippi. And there was a very, very bad boating accident in which 2 people were killed and 3 others severely injured. Yeah, down by Brownsville. Yep, not far from. So covering that kind of stuff and finding, because we knew some of these people that were in the accident and had been killed and things. And so I don't know if that's the most interesting, but it was certainly one of the more difficult things to cover, because you know the people so well, and how you can report. Well, and actually our coworker's daughter was just killed back in May in a kind of an awful drunk driving accident. Don't drink and drive. You guys shouldn't be drinking, period, but certainly don't drink and drive. And I had to cover it as a news story, and it was hard, and not something that she wanted to have on the air, but it was a decision that we kind of had to make, or I made as news director. And I mean, there haven't been any long-term relational lasting problems, but it was a hard thing to have to do. I mean, her 17-year-old daughter was dead, and and she had to listen to it on the news at her job.
Andrea.
So that kind of thing. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for.
Yep, he's nodding his head.
No, it's not.
Andrea.
Okay, awesome.
What does your company or business look for in future employees?
Oh.
And how do you get involved?
Sorry.
How do you
So
get people involved in your career area?
So Andrea is wondering how Wennes communication stations gets people involved and what they look for in new employees.
Okay.
Well,
right. How do you get into radio? Exactly. They are 100% willing to hire if you are, well, if we had any positions open. We don't right now. We have quite a little bit of staff longevity, but the last 2 more full-time type people, the gal that's now the morning sidekick over on our country station, had no radio experience whatsoever, but very positive, willing to work and try some new things. And that's some of what we do here too. I mean, I remember when I first started, I was very timid, and I was just afraid to, say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. And while there's a certain amount of that now, the less I worry about that, I think the better radio we're making, right? And so that's what we've kind of seen in other employees that we've hired, whether it's been part-time or whatever. They're willing to try and do something new and fun, and we're willing to train. It's not hard. Pete and I always kind of say a well-trained monkey could run that board in there. You know, it isn't hard because the hard work to get those logs and everything, all that has been done before it's even been uploaded onto the computer. So it's what you're saying in between times that is what makes it the on-air talent, I guess, right? And so you have to continually be making that creative and fun.
Excellent.
Does that answer your question?
She's nodding. She looks satisfied.
Okay, well, you can say no. If it doesn't answer your question, you can say no, stay, do something differently. I mean,
We are not shy. This class is not. Miss Emily.
that's good. That's good.
Weren't in radio, what would you be doing?
Oh, if you were not in radio, what would you be doing instead?
I would be farming with my brother. If my brother could afford to hire me as his right-hand man, that's what I would do in a heartbeat. He can't afford me. But yeah, this is one of my many side projects. My daughter started showing cattle. I mean, both Robin and I were farm girls, right? And always loved being out on the farm, and especially the cattle are my favorite. And so he sells club calves and show calves, and so I help him on the side get ready for sales and different things like that. And it's fun to be outdoors, even in the awful winter. And yeah, so if I could, but.
Okay. Oh, we have 2 more questions. Jackson.
Oh, wow.
How does your company determine the pricing for its like services like ads?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
No radio ads. How do you put those out? And then you also probably have stuff online,
yep.
Right? On your website?
We don't actually have a rate card or anything like that online. I don't know. You may, if you found the end of the internet, find a rate card somewhere online. But what they go by is what we call a rate card. A lot of that is going to be based on where you are, your location. We're not a huge area, we're not a metro area. We're rural. I know a city that's 40 miles away from here. The radio stations up there charge quite a lot more per 30 and 60-second spot. So that's what we charge. We charge time that you buy on the air. So like if you buy a live broadcast, which is usually a 2-hour-long thing, plus you get liners, we call them, during the week promoting the live broadcast coming up, and then you get, during that 2-hour live broadcast, we talk on the air about your business. So that's a fee. And then we charge a certain for 60-second spots, and we charge a certain price for 30-second spots and a certain price for 15-second spots. And so, and that all then depends on when those spots play too. So we can charge more for morning drive time, because from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. or some stations stretch it from 5 to 10, depending on the station. We can charge more because we have more listenership, frankly, from 6 to 9 or 5 to 9. And then same thing with the afternoon drive, because this is when people are coming to work. And so we charge more that way, per 30 and per 60-second ad. I'm trying to think, let's see. Everything that's on the air is being paid for in one way or the other. Is being charged for, I should say, in one way or the other. If you buy what we call a TFN, till further notice package, a lot of times you'll get a percentage break on your per spot rate, because you're staying on the air for a long term. And that's what we want, is the more long-term clients we have. These are the people that pay my paycheck in the long run, right? So the more people we have on the air, the better income we're having for the station, the better income we're generating.
Are you ready for the next question?
Yeah, go for it. I see a hand up back there already.
Johnny.
How does honesty impact your work environment?
Okay, Johnny has a question that I was thinking about as well. She wants to know about how honesty impacts your work and your work environment. And I was wondering, since you're the news person, how do you make sure your news is not biased?
Right. And because I try to just do news. Like, we're talking about the meeting that's coming up in Lansing, and it is at 5:30 on Tuesday night. And I try, yes, I know exactly what you're saying. I actually, one of my bosses is very much scanner listener to her person. And so you hear about an accident, and he is, you should have that on the air, that the Wennes County Sheriff's Department was called out to blah, blah, blah for blah, blah, blah. And that's all you have. And in my opinion, what I like to wait for is sheriff's report, legit, from the Wennes County Sheriff's Department. And then I read it almost verbatim, because it's important to me, because a lot of times you're dealing with people who've been killed tragically, or their sons and family members are being picked up for drugs, or it's oftentimes not good news you're passing along. And so it's very important to me that it be accurate as possible. Political season gets a little more interesting when you have one party and the other party having all their there too. I just tried to report John Smith is going to be doing a town hall session at the Family Table Restaurant on Saturday morning. Go see John Smith. Lorraine Borowski is having a town hall session at the public library on Monday night. Go see Lorraine. And unless they have an all-out brawl at the at their town hall, I try to stay out of it.
Johnny,
if I can.
Address your question? Yep, she's nodding. We have about 5 minutes left with these.
Oh, wow.
We have one person with a big hand up and a couple that you must have answered their question because they put their hands down. Andrea.
How does radio impact society? How do you think radio impacts society?
How do you think radio impacts society? Like, are you having a positive impact on your listeners, or do you just kind of exist?
Well, we hope that we're having a positive impact. I mean, that's pretty important to us, in fact. This is partly why I do the news the way I do, but that's also in part because our communities are very important to us. I guess we talked about that with your earlier class too, that you guys are small town, you understand, and you may be at the age where you're really frustrated with small town or would just really like to get the heck out of Dodge and whatever. But when they put their heads together, can really accomplish kind of a lot of amazing things. And as far as personal personal relationships and that kind of thing, you're never going to find that anywhere else in the world. You really aren't. And so as far as our impact on the community, we do a fund drive for the food pantry every fall that brings in over $10,000. And, some of these those are the kind of things that we try to do to be impactful in our community. We sponsor the local, what do you call it? Those things with all your pictures in a yearbook and some of those kind of things, because we want the community to see us supporting it as well. It's not just us going out and beating on the door saying run ads, run ads, run ads. We want them to understand that we appreciate their contribution too.
Gary.
I hope that helped. Yeah.
Like, how much is it to use the song to get paid every time you play a song, or?
Yeah, we have to pay. It's BMI, I think is the name of it. Our office manager Casey takes care of that. It's a huge chunk of money. She has to pay BMI fees quarterly, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't know how much it is. It's a lot of money though. And yeah, if you don't pay that, you can get into a lot of trouble with the FCC. We and the artist people, they're grouchy about that. They like to be paid for their work too, interestingly enough. Isn't that funny? But they, and then all this FCC stuff is really fun. We have actually done a ghost inspection with this guy who knows all the ins and outs of what. So if an FCC inspector comes in, we have a little certificate on the wall that says KVIK is in compliance, because we've had a guy who has checked to make sure we are. So it would include your BMI licensure and that.
We have about 2.5 minutes left. What final
And it's
message?
Friday. They all want to run.
It is so totally true. What advice could you give them about communicating and communicating clearly to kind of close it up for the day?
Okay. Then that's, yeah, something we talked about a lot before. If you guys are bored with writing essays and doing this kind of thing, I can't tell you how many grown adults that I work with on a daily basis that can't put a sentence together. And I also can't tell you, because you're children, that what I think of these grown adults, but I guarantee you it's not pleasant. You have to learn how to speak. You have to learn how to write, and you have to learn how to do both effectively, or you're going to be that person that somebody's sitting there talking about someday, man, where did that guy go to school? Because he doesn't even, or she doesn't even, or, and the other part is too, I guess we talked about before, that people won't misunderstand what you're thinking. You're eventually going to have to be making yourself clear to someone, whether it's in a workplace or a relationship, however. And if you can't do that, both verbally and written, via the written word, trouble getting along, communicating just in general, everyday stuff.
Anything final to say to Janelle, guys?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ask some questions now.
Oh, have a nice weekend, guys.
I was just gonna ask her what breed of cattle she showed for.
Oh, Jared wants to know about Ben's cows and what breed they are.
Oh, well, my brother and I are third generation shorthorn breeders. My brother also raises Limousin cattle, sells at the Wisconsin State Limousin sale every year. He actually had the top seller the last 2 years. And then he's got club calves too. He had a calf he sold to a lady, ended up in Arkansas, bred to man amongst boys, if that means anything to you, that got grand champion at the Arkansas State Fair. So we've got 5 embryos on the ground that are full sibs to that calf this year. So we're pretty excited about that.
Tell Benjamin hello for me and that you've now impressed my class.
I will do that. I'll do that. Well, thanks, you guys. You guys are a good bunch. You'll have to tell your other group that you guys totally outdid them on questions.
Okay, I'll stop the recording at this point.
I think